Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our discussions regarding this great work, which is Twin Peaks, and specifically in the context of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and specifically with respect to that, Twin Peaks The Missing Pieces. And so, as some of you may know, we have been going through the missing pieces piece by piece, in a manner of speaking. And so I'd like to continue, and in fact, perhaps on the occasion of this video, conclude our discussions about Twin Peaks The Missing Pieces. So thank you very much, my dear friends, for joining me along on this journey. I've had such a wonderful time to revisit these missing pieces with you, and I look forward to our continuing conversations about many a Twin Peaks episode in part and piece going forward. But before we move on, or before we talk any further about these pieces, let me just point out that once again, I don't hold myself out to be a Twin Peaks expert. I don't know everything that is to know about Twin Peaks. So I'm going to get a lot of the details wrong. I apologize in advance for that. I beg your pardon, and I ask for your patience on that, but I will be doing my best. But that is also to say that I'm a fan of Twin Peaks, and I have been a fan for a long time, and that also includes The Missing Pieces and watching The Missing Pieces many times. So I'm coming at it from that perspective. Also, I will say that I won't be making any references to any parts or episodes after this. Anything prior to this, the pilots, any episode in season 1, any episode in season 2, the film Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and any of the other prior missing pieces. Those might be referred to in the context of this discussion, but nothing beyond that, my dear friends. So don't worry if you are new to Twin Peaks. And if you haven't seen any of any of future stories, don't worry, I won't be making any direct references to those. We'll save those discussions for another day. But with that in mind, let us dive right into these remaining pieces. And so first up, there's a still right here. And this is a shot, or this is a part, maybe it's a little bit more of an extension. You know, there's a moment in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me where Laura sneaks out of the house and meets James. And then there's a shot really of this is of course where after this Leland follows or pursues, and so there's a quick shot of that going on. But here we have a slightly sort of alternate take, or an embellishment or extension. We see the car driving, and we understand when we see who gets out of the car that it's Leland or Leland, based on how the walk up towards the door seems to be somewhat of an ominous one. This is one of the great things about the performance by Ray Wise as Leland Palmer. You know, the hulking mass of the walk could suggest something not quite right, a la perhaps maybe Bob is somewhere around there lurking. So that could be an indication of something not quite right at that moment in time. Also note at this very precise moment, Laura is sneaking out of the house, out of her room, down to the ground, and hiding in the bushes with the look of sort of terror, shivering as she sees Leland trying not to get noticed. But there's a moment where he stops and looks right in our direction, which is very terrifying. And he appears to not have seen Laura, although we're not quite sure of that either. But there is that very chilling, eerie moment with the soundtrack, of course, the ominous looming presence of the soundtrack. And then once Leland goes inside, we see James emerge on the road there on his bike, with I guess waiting for his rendezvous with Laura. And Laura then runs down, and then they drive off on the bike. So this is again a very key moment for a lot of reasons. Again, we see Leland, we see Laura, and what we assume to be the final moments, these are going to be the final moments, and meeting James for the last time, sneaking out of the house for the last time. And again, there's an air of sadness and chill and almost a creepy horror as well. You can see it all the way in the decor here. So it's again the idea too of the domestic and tranquil, all of a sudden seeming frightening and so unknown in an instant. And we have certainly get that throughout the world of Twin Peaks, definitely throughout the experience of Twin Peaks for a Walk with Me, and definitely through the missing pieces, such as a missing piece like this one. The next missing piece is this shot, this quick shot of Margaret, the log lady, and we hear in the distance, very faintly on the soundtrack, screams. And we are reminded of one of the moments maybe earlier in the TV series where, in terms of the log lady and what she heard and what she witnessed or what she heard on the night of the killing of Laura Palmer. And so we seem to be getting that reenactment or that moment actually play itself out in real time, as it were, because we hear the sound maybe faintly, but still chilling and so frightening, the sounds of screams, which we understand to be this is the moment where these terrible events that are happening to Ronette and to Laura Palmer. And we also understand the log lady, or Margaret, is in sort of a close point, geographically speaking. So she's a type of witness when it comes to this. And so it's this is a very scary moment. You know, we met Margaret very briefly in a moment in the film, the final film, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, but we didn't get a moment like this. So to have this and to be reminded of the utter sadness and the sorrow of this terrible, terrible moment. I mean, when you get the moment in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the moment of the killing of Laura Palmer, it's horrifying, like a horror movie. But we also get this moment here from Margaret, which then reminds us too that while it's also very horrifying, it's also very sad and sorrowful indeed. So we see her and we see the log again in this moment of sadness and sorrow as they hear the screams in the distance and look up at the nighttime sky and the moon. This is what a moment indeed. What a moment. And next we have this moment too, which is again a sort of reenactment of one of the iconic moments from the pilot, of course, which is the body wrapped in plastic floating in the water here, just about to be discovered by Pete in the morning. Which is going to be part of the early moments of the pilot episode, as you know. But we get a little glimpse of it here. And indeed, if you recall from Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, we got a quick shot of the body floating. However, that was done in a sort of darkness or maybe dusk, or it wasn't as light as this. I mean, we get a sense of the sunrise, I think, here because of the brightness of the light as it's reflecting off of the surface of the water here. So that's an interesting moment here. So, and we also hear that in the distance the foghorn, I think. There is this idea of kind of a sunrise or a new day, but what will welcome Pete and others on this new day, but the discovery of this of the body and the realization of the murder of Laura Palmer. Next up, we have this moment, or these moments, which seem to be very much linked to the final episode of season 2, because we get a title card that says "Some months pass" or "Some months later," and we get the shot of Glastonbury Grove, and we get a sudden shot of Annie being rushed down what we think to be towards an emergency room. Sheriff Truman just brought her in from Glastonbury Grove. So these are related to the events, again, from the last episode of the second season. And then we then go to this place, which is, we understand, the Black Lodge, or the place identified as the Black Lodge. And we see the scene of Dale Cooper entering, and we see the man from another place with the countertop and the gold lacquer. "Do you know who I am? I am the arm, and I sound like this." And then making the noise. And then this is essentially the same scene that we saw some pieces back. So we're essentially seeing the same scene replayed. However, at this point, there is a difference, because in the earlier scene, Dale Cooper sees the ring, or the man from another place picks up the ring and shows it to him or shows it to us close up to the camera. And then Dale Cooper turns to Laura/us and says, "Don't take the ring, Laura. Don't take the ring." And we actually had a missing piece like this. And also, it's somewhat parallel to what we saw in about the middle part of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Here we have the same scene, except there is a key difference. There is no ring. And it's remarked upon by the people here, by Dale Cooper and then by the man from another place. He says someone else has it now, and Dale Cooper asks, where am I and how can I leave? And to this, the man from another place seems to say, doesn't, like with many things, he doesn't seem to give what appears to be a direct answer, but rather he says, you are here, and there's no place to go but home. And he starts to cackle and laugh and then dance, and then we get the onset of the music, the very familiar music, but then it cuts abruptly, and we get this moment of the shot with the superimposition of a face and moving rooms, and that's Dale Cooper. So what do we make of this? So again, the replaying of a scene that we had seen in the past, but with a key difference being made. So before it was a scene, but with the ring on the countertop or the marble top, and here the ring is not here because the ring is with someone else, and the reference to Annie and the realization that Dale Cooper has about Annie and being here. Whether or not he's able to leave, again, we're not sure. But one of the things I wanted to bring up here was keep in mind about how alternate realities seem to take place. The same scene happens again, repeated action happens again, but with a key change being made. And maybe that key change leads to a type of chain reaction which causes shifts, which causes that same scene to turn out very differently. And so let's wonder how this has transpired up to the many stories we have had up to this particular moment. And who knows, maybe it might happen in the future. But in any event, right, is it future or is it past, as we see in this replayed scene, right? So in any event, let's keep in mind how there's repeated action, but maybe the change, one key change or one small change, which is still seemingly quite significant, will have a kind of chain reaction effect that will change everything in an alternate manner. So that is very seems to be very important in the context of Twin Peaks. Also, when you get a superimposition of a face over a room or something, this is a very common image, a very powerful image that we see throughout Twin Peaks, past, present, and future, perhaps, and also throughout the context of, say, David Lynch's filmography. I mean, I point your attention to films all the way back to, say, Eraserhead, the opening moments of Eraserhead. I mean, that's essentially a floating head superimposed over space and the universe and the planet. So, and then always in that kind of moment, there seems to be the character having some kind of realization or epiphany, one could say. One could say, too, that perhaps Dale Cooper, when you see a moment where his face registers a kind of moment as this is happening. So maybe that suggests that he is realizing something. He is reaching an epiphany about something. About what? And I'm not sure. Maybe it has to do with his time here. Maybe it has to do with some kind of finality. I'm not sure. But he seems to have an idea, or perhaps has an intuition of what this means going forward. And then next we get more Annie, right? How is Annie? Right, how's Annie? Well, we see a little bit of how she's doing in terms of this state. She seems to be in a somewhat of a comatose state. Her eyes are open, and then a nurse is attending over her. But then suddenly she seems to be awake, or she says something, but then goes back to that state that she was before. And what does she say? This is a very familiar line as well. She says, my name is Annie. I've been with Laura and Dale. The good Dale is in the lodge and he can't leave. Write it in your diary. So this is a line which we've heard again earlier as well in the film Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Laura and her dream or vision, whatever the case may be, when Annie herself appears in the bed, she seems to be dressed differently than she is now, but the line is the same. And so here again, repeated action or repeated lines of dialogue, but in different settings. Here's a different setting, perhaps place and time, to where Laura was at the time that we saw this moment with Annie in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and then we see her wearing the ring, and the ring is this very famous ring now, or infamous ring now, and the nurse, after Annie's back to her somewhat sedate or comatose state, the nurse seems to be very attracted to this ring, and she takes off the ring. Notice again the idea of taking off the ring, putting on the ring and taking off the ring. These seem to be very significant acts in the world of Twin Peaks or Fire Walk with Me. Remember the moment when the ring is put on, at the moment, Laura Palmer, at the very moment of her killing. So the act of putting on the ring seems to be significant. The act of taking off the ring, you notice how that when the ring is taken off, the camera moves back from Annie's hand, as almost like Annie's hand is shrinking. It has that effect, which is interesting. And then we see the nurse put it on, and she seems to be very elated and very overwhelmed, looking herself in the mirror. And we get a shot of the mirror and the shot of Annie's reflection in the mirror. So it's interesting to see how mirrors are used in Twin Peaks. We recall Leland looking into the mirror and seeing the reflection of Bob, etc. So it's interesting that we see that the scene ends with a reflection on Annie. I'm not suggesting that Annie is Bob or Bob is Annie, but what I am suggesting is it's an interesting choice to have this scene end on the shot of the mirror reflection of Annie. In this state again, mirrors, which might be kind of linked to where she was prior to this in the Black Lodge and various existences, and she seems to be in two places at once or more places at once, hence the mirror. So again, also repeated action too. This is very important, and it leads to the key question, right, which is how's Annie? And then we get this moment again. This is essentially a continuation of the very final moments of the final episode of season 2, right? How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie? And we get the perspective now of Doc Hayward and Sheriff Truman, who are outside the room. We got a little bit of that at the very tail end of season 2, the final episode. And now we get the follow through, and so we have now Cooper feigning falling on the floor as the two of them barge into the bathroom there, and he's talking about how he struck his head against the mirror, and we see the blood falling from his forehead there, and as he struck his head there, and it struck him as funny. You understand me? It struck me as funny. And Doc Hayward, to his credit, right, he comes in and says, going back to bed. Of course, you've seen the blood here, but going back to bed. And then Cooper says, but I haven't brushed my teeth yet. So this is, again, a kind of maybe a real nail in the coffin denouement, in a manner of speaking. To sort of really drive the point home about what has happened to Cooper. Not only have the reminder from Annie about how the good Dale is in the lodge and he can't leave, we also have the reminder too that Bob seems to have now occupied Cooper, and now it seems to be permanent, or at least permanent, at least at this moment. And indeed, he hasn't brushed his teeth yet, so that's also a very big deal. Yes. What a way to end. I mean, what more is there to say? It's this kind of reminder of something's rotten in the state of Denmark, to quote Hamlet, which is quoted by Major Briggs in one of the episodes of the series. But yes, indeed, something's rotten in the state of Twin Peaks. Maybe Sheriff Truman and Doc Hayward might not be aware of it yet. They might get a sense of it. We certainly know. But what can we do? Because it ends right here. And we're left wondering, thinking, waiting, anticipating into the unknown. And then we are left with the end credits roll and what looks like creamed corn on a spoon, and the lights flash and the music. That ends Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces, or the deleted scenes, as it's also referred to here and there in the end credit roll here. But and cream corn, which we have seen associated in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me and elsewhere in terms of pain and sorrow, garmonbozia, or cream corn. And the spoon here too, which we've also seen in terms of how the cream corn seems to be part of the mouth ingesting or escaping from the mouth. So cream corn, the image of cream corn ends Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces as we fade and to darkness, and we won't get anything more in the world of Twin Peaks until we do. And so what will we get in the future? Let us hold our comments about that until the next videos on this discussion of this great series known as Twin Peaks. So I guess in conclusion, I can say that I mean there's a lot here. There's a lot here in terms of the missing pieces, and I always think of the missing pieces as now being part of the fabric of the continuity of Twin Peaks. And they really inform how I view Twin Peaks, all the stories up to now. And again, without saying anything more, they do have the potential, perhaps, maybe, possibly, who knows, of informing one's viewing of any subsequent stories of Twin Peaks going forward. At least that's the possibility. But let us, again, as I say, save those specific points until we get to those points in a separate video. But this has been Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces, and what a grand and a fun and fabulous ride it is and always is whenever I revisit these missing pieces. These are brilliant, these are genius, these are out of this world, and they are just part of this great universe, this great work of art that is Twin Peaks. So with that, my dear friends, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for guiding me. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for just being there, as always, my dear friends. I would not be able to do this without you. Thank you. And let me say once again that this won't be the end. There will be maybe more stories, more conversation points, more videos to talk about in the context of Twin Peaks. So stick around and check back to this channel if you are interested for those and other videos. But until the next one, my dear friends, please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies and series and works, such as the great work that is Twin Peaks. So thank you very much, and cheers. I haven't brushed my teeth yet.